All right, LinkedIn is up there, J-Dubs. If you could confirm mine there, please. Twitter is up. Welcome to the show, Twitter. We'll get cracking here in a matter of moments. Chime in with some questions for us. And J-Dubs, let us know with JMN, please. Okay. All right. We will start here shortly, guys. We just want our friends at the media outlets, we're giving them a second as their broadcasts are finishing to jump in the feed per their requests. Appreciate your patience as we get started here on the show. We're going to spend about an hour with our guests here talking zoning in the city of Charlottesville.
Do you still have those little bumper stickers that's on your computer?
Yes, we can give you one after the show. Absolutely.
That would be very nice.
Happy to give you one.
Thank you.
I got a brand new car, I'll put it on too.
All right.
I'm going to save it for my brand new bumper next week.
Okay, are you getting a new car next week?
No.
New bumper?
Just a new bumper.
Whoops, what happened?
All right, and Judah, did you look at
Back
mine there,
into a
please?
Giant Mercedes. At Keswick, no less. I know how to do
Better
it.
turn my phone off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, mine's on mute.
You're off. Good. Last thing we need.
Right, J-Dubs. And we're waiting on you there, Judah.
It's hard not to cast a glance over the television.
Oh, I know.
Do you want me to turn it off for you?
So, I'm okay.
Yeah,
Happy to do that
We'll
if you like.
discipline ourselves because we'll be riveted on you and the questions.
Okay.
Yeah, should we be looking at you?
You can look at anyone you want, anywhere you want, wherever you feel
So
comfortable.
you can sneak a peek at the market.
Yeah, I try not to.
Yeah,
It's been a
really.
brutal.
You can
It's-
turn it
it's
off.
up now.
It's been a brutal 2022 for the markets.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's been a brutal 2022. All right, we'll get started here in about 10 seconds, guys. All right, we're going to have some fun, guys. Tell your friends, pass it along. Judah, we'll get started here in 10 seconds as you activate those, please. Let's start when you're ready. Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille show. My name is Jerry Miller. Good Wednesday afternoon to you. Thank you kindly for joining us. This audience, Charlottesville, Central Virginia, Commonwealth country, and worldwide here on the I Love CVille network. Today's program is going to be dynamite. We're going to try to humanize, localize, and personalize a topic of conversation that has undoubtedly been in the news cycle and on the tips of tongues in a 10.2 square mile city that we absolutely adore. That city, Charlottesville, Virginia. We know Charlottesville is landlocked. I think we all realize that. We also realize Charlottesville has an affordability problem. And as a result, the word upzoning has become more popular than ever before. The idea is simple. If we upzone the city of Charlottesville and we create more housing stock, will additional supply help with price point and potentially create affordability? Supply and demand 101. I learned this in Ken Elzinga's economics class as a first year at the University of Virginia, and it's a lesson I never forgot. Well, today's topic really resonates with both sides of the aisle. The proponents of upzoning say we need this if we're going to create Charlottesville from an affordable ecosystem moving forward. The opponents of upzoning say, hey, the infrastructure is not there. Hey, what is this going to do to the roads, to the schools, and potentially quality of life? And what is this going to do to the neighborhoods that we purchased in long ago with the understanding they would remain how they were when we purchased them from day one? That topic on today's show. Judah Wickhauer, if you can go to the studio camera and if you can welcome our guest to the program. It's an interview that we're very, very excited about. We have Martha Smythe in the house, Philip Harway, and Mark Cavan. Ladies first, of course, as always. Martha, the show is yours. If you could introduce yourself to everybody that's watching today's program, please.
Thank you, Jerry. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. I'm Martha Smythe. I've lived in Charlottesville almost 13 years and carefully chose this as my next home back then because I really loved this city. There's so much to do here. The culture is great. The environment is beautiful. It's close to the ocean. It's close to the mountains. It's not too far from D.C. And so it was a real attraction, and it beat out 9 other cities.
Wow, what were the 9 other ones?
Well, let's see.
You don't have to give all 9 if you don't want. That's a lot. That's a long list.
Okay, well, Asheville was
That's a great city.
second choice. And before that were Chattanooga and Nashville, Austin, Philly, which is where I came from originally. So, yeah, I won't give them all, but that's a start.
Very impressive. So Charlottesville wins.
Charlottesville won my heart.
And Charlottesville's won our heart as well. One of our companies, I Love Seville. You know how much we love Charlottesville.
Right.
We'll get Philip in the mix. I'll let folks know how this interview came to fruition. Got a friendly email from Philip, and as a result, we have a panel here, and we're going to talk zoning. Before we talk zoning, Philip, introduce yourself to everybody that's watching the show.
Sure. Well, thank you, Jerry. I also want to thank you for having us on here because, as you know, there are lots of different voices out there, and we feel that our voice has not been heard often enough in as many medias as possible. So we're glad to be here on I Love Seville. I myself am a former entrepreneur. I had my own restaurant business for 25 years. I did some commercial real estate for 20 years, and we ended up in Charlottesville for all the good reasons that we are all familiar with. We love it here, and we're just thrilled to be part of the future.
I love it. Great answer. We'll get Mark in the mix. Mark is the gentleman on the panel that has been in Charlottesville the longest.
Yeah, moved here late 60s, and basically, seeing the city change. I can remember back on 29 North when the only thing that was out there was what we used to call Hump Burger, and now it's the Oriental grocery store out there. And that was basically about it out there, all the way out to the airport. I've been very active as far as community affairs, neighborhood affairs, been past president of the North Downtown Resident Association, currently on the board. Also been active in trying to find housing for people that are homeless as well as low-income individuals.
I appreciate that answer. In that answer, you made mention of empowering people to find homes. I think, and I don't want to speak for you guys, Martha, I'll throw it to you. Your group is not opposed to housing for people.
Absolutely not.
Your group is a proponent of strategic housing for people. The show is yours on that topic.
Thank you. You said the words that I would have said, strategic placement of affordable housing. We are very much for affordable housing. We're aware that a lot of the people that work for the city cannot afford to live in the city. We also know that there are people that are living well past, on the expense, well past the 35% of their income just to pay for a dwelling. That in low-income cases leaves them with very little for the rest of their needs. So we're very much in favor of it. We want it to be done prudently, strategically, and with forethought. What we seem to see now feels a bit random, like, well, we'll just let the builders decide. And that's not the best way to go about that, in our opinion.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we, I follow this topic very closely, but for those that don't, perhaps, Philip, you can take the lead here. Set the stage with what has happened over the last, couple of years when it's come to upzoning and increased density in this city. The show is yours.
Okay, well, that's about the time I've been here in Seville, so that's good for me. That's the perspective I have. It's very obvious that there is a national housing crisis. It's not just specific to Charlottesville. The issue is nationwide, depending where you live, and affects many, many, many people. Here in Charlottesville, it's apparent that there is a large percentage of the population that is struggling with housing and that could use help, should get help. And the debate really is very little. There are very few people who are opposed to helping others, which is one of the great reasons to be in Charlottesville. It's a very welcoming area. We've seen this with refugees. We've seen it with people of our own who are here, who need help. And so it's just a matter of how we're going to accomplish this, not what we're going to accomplish. We want to see this accomplished. Our feelings down deep from our varied experiences in our lives is that the effort that's being made will not succeed with the goals that are being set out. If I take it a little further, I'm aware of the fact that the city has had a lot of political turmoil, let's say.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, over the last few years.
Yeah.
I have relatives that don't live in the city, some that even live overseas, and when I told them we moved here, that's the first thing they said. Oh, that's the city where there was this awful thing back in 2017. So it's very clear that that the city has problems and that there's a willingness from the citizens of this city to try to tackle, to try to make things better. The disagreement is greatly on how this should get accomplished, not what should get accomplished.
Mark, show us yours, this topic, anywhere you want to go.
I'll mention something that took place a few years ago with the Tom Tom Festival, sponsored a seminar, which was highly attended, with standing room only. But they had 3 experts in the field of affordability housing. And basically the take that I took from it was you're not going to achieve affordable housing with new construction unless you have government funding involved in it. And the other take that they really were pushing a lot was to rehab existing structures to create affordable housing. Now, it costs some money to do that, but it's a whole lot less than trying to do new construction.
So all 3 live in the city, guys. Martha, Rugby Hills.
Yes.
Philip, Belmont Carlton, and Mark, North Downtown. So all 3 represent a different neighborhood in our city. They have formed a group that's so far unnamed. Maybe a brand or a name will come in the near future. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to utilize the power of numbers and the power of a group to have their voice heard and in the news cycle. Their opponents are organized, vocal, and certainly very strategic. I think everything I said there is fair.
Truly.
The show, the I Love CVille show, is an unbiased show that likes to highlight both sides of the story. So what I'm trying to do with today's interview is to showcase the other side. We've seen the side that is very much in favor of upzoning and density. It's all over the news, all over social media. We're now giving their side an opportunity to voice their opinion because we're a democratic media outlet that's fair and responsible. So I'm going to start with you here, Martha. The idea is, and please, anyone jump in. Don't wait for me to prompt you. It's the 4 of us having a good time at a coffee shop talking about a city we love. That's the whole concept of the show. The concept is if we add more rooftops, more bedrooms, more doors to Charlottesville, that maybe pricing will get stabilized and not escalate at this rate that it's been going of late. Supply and demand. Why do you guys feel that this could potentially backfire and create collateral damage for a town? All 4 of us, all 5 of us. Heck, Liza the dog back there. You guys may not have met her. She loves Charlottesville as well. Why could this backfire or create collateral damage? Martha, you want to start, and then you guys jump in when you're ready. Show is yours.
Sure. That idea is theoretical and not practical, in our opinion. They are talking about putting many more doors, as you say, in, but only 10% of them need to be affordable housing. So this means that of the 600 that they're approximating for the next 5 years, we will only get 12 new units of affordable housing per year, one a month. Of course, it won't come in that nice even trickle, but it will not provide for the thousands that they're talking about needing affordable housing. So it does not solve the problem that way. It feels to me like somebody's just saying, here it is. Back when I was in sales, they used to talk about, well, throw it on the wall and see if it sticks. Well, that idea is not real practical here when you're talking about human beings' lives and human beings' livelihoods and their investments. The middle class is heavily invested in their homes, and to upset that apple cart entirely, which is the risk here, would be a real travesty for those folks, many of whom have lived in Charlottesville as long as Mark or longer. So I see this as an issue that stretches across the community. It's not just affordable housing. If this plan were to be undertaken, it could, a big thing could come in next to a little two-story house or a one-story house in my neighborhood. And suddenly, you can't see anything from your house. You can't grow anything in your yard because the sun's blocked. We saw this down on 10th Street when they put the market complex in. So it's just not...
She's talking Dairy Market.
Dairy Market,
Yep.
Yes, thank you. And the apartments behind that block out everything on the other side of the street. So that risk is certainly inherent. There's another risk that I see that is real important that seems to get overlooked a bit, and that's the environmental risk. More houses, more drivers, more pollution, more impervious surface, more flooding, less of a population of trees, less of a canopy, and that means that we have more heat deserts. So this has to be done very thoughtfully and carefully, very strategically.
Do you feel it's rushed? Do you guys feel it's rushed?
Absolutely.
Yes.
If so, how?
Absolutely. Well, and can I expand
Please.
on what Martha put in there? I mean, the numbers of affordable units, first of all, in the study, we've not been given a concrete number
Right.
of how many are needed. But even the numbers that Martha's talking about is based on the city requiring of builders who build construction or abodes of more than 10. Only the developers who build more than 10 will be required to put affordability into their criteria. So let's stop for a second and think about that. Any development that is under 10 units, any piece of property, does not have to have any requirements for affordability. When I first spoke to the town council moving into town, whenever it was, about this issue, I used the term, it feels like it's a Hail Mary pass. I feel like it's an issue which has clearly been here a long time, and that varied attempts to try to do something about it have barely gotten off the ground. And all of a sudden, we're now going, we need to throw this Hail Mary because we're almost at the end of the game. So it's rushed in that sense. Its intentions are good. The details are only not going to provide what we need.
The devil, as they say, is in the details. Has upzoning been birthed because of a volatile political climate locally?
Ooh, that's a touchy one, and I could certainly show my political stripes, but I don't want to get into this not in my backyard issue.
Because, I'll jump in, I'll throw
Yeah,
it to you.
please.
Some have labeled you guys NIMBYs. Is that fair?
Well, I said the word before you did.
Yeah, right.
It's amazing to see people oppose one or one's ideas with labels as opposed to anything else. Our opposition to the plan is not because we don't want to see development. I mean, maybe some people don't. Maybe some people want not to see any development. I've lived long enough to know that development occurs whether you like it or not. And it's only a matter of what kind of development, if you're able to have an effect on it, will come. So we're saying we think that development will happen in Charlottesville. We just think it needs to be much more targeted towards the goal that we're being told is affordability. There's a sense that that's what's being used to make this politically relevant, but not necessarily what the goals are going to provide.
Mark, thoughts?
I think we're being realists on this whole plan, and that it's just not going to really achieve the results that's being put out there. Personally, I'm not against development. I want to be sure it's appropriate, though. This plan put together by RHI has many flaws.
RHI, tell us the acronyms. One thing we try not to use
Okay.
is acronyms.
Actually,
Roadside and,
I don't know the name of their,
they're the consultants that
Right.
did
Yeah.
The
the study.
consultants.
Yeah.
We had a neighborhood meeting for North Downtown that we actually had several former city council members attend, planning commission members attend, the neighborhood, and had a very active discussion taking place. Also had some planning commission, one planning commission member that was there.
Which one was that?
Roy
Stolzenberg?
Yeah.
He watches the program routinely. He's come on the show often.
And we had a developer there that was one of the developers of Stonefield, and he made the comment that this plan was not going to bring the results that the city was expecting. Yesterday, there was also a letter in the Daily Progress.
John Foltz,
Right.
the author, lives in
And-
the Rugby neighborhood, front of the program. In fact, I bought part of this building from Dr. John Foltz, retired UVA professor. Fantastic guy. Love Margaret as well, his beautiful wife. Go ahead.
And he has some concerns about this whole plan too, and echoed some of the same thoughts that we basically have.
And he was, if I remember correctly, in the housing advocate for UVA when he was there as a
Yeah, chair of the,
Yeah.
that department, with that section.
So questions are coming in fast and furious. We got much of the realtor community watching the show.
Good.
One of the realtors is Paul McCarter, who I have a lot of respect for. We have given him the moniker, the King of the South Side. He lives in Avinity in the urban ring, right over the Charlottesville line down Avon Extended. He says this for the panel. And here's the cool part of the show is the viewers and listeners will chime in and shape the discussion. Anyone who watches the program knows the only comments I relay live on air are those that are respectful. I don't mind that the panel is challenged, but it's got to be in respectful fashion. He does it all the time in respectful fashion. He says, for the panel, additional supply, even if it does not check the affordable housing box, will cause a reduction, slow down in housing costs. The supply and demand argument here. He says if we put more supply in the ecosystem, housing costs should balance, drop, or come lower. Your thoughts on that topic here?
Yes.
Who wants to go with that?
I'd like to
Please.
start with it, maybe the others chime in. My answer to that is yes and no. There are two factors that need to be considered as housing stock gets older and retires from a middle class to a lower middle class level for affordability. That takes years. It's not a rapid thing. So that filtering down idea of that comment or that aspect of the comment does not work reliably and quickly. The other thing is we got to remember that for places that are built, we have people coming in, many of them with deep pockets. And so they can afford whatever the builders develop. We've had things proposed to the city that were in the quasi-affordability range for purchase and turned out to be $1 million condos along a train track. I mean, who does that?
Are you talking the C&O row houses? Is
Yeah.
that the ones you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yes, those, Martha's undoubtedly correct. The entry point for the C&O row houses is about 1.3, and they go north of $2 million. And she's also correct, they're across from a railroad track, but still the houses sell. The
They
townhomes
do.
sell all day, every day.
Well, so
Yeah.
you're almost answering the question that if you build,
They will come.
They will come.
I
Yeah.
think we learned that in Kevin Costner, Field of Dreams, did we not?
And
Yeah.
back to basic economics 101, yes, if you build more, it will slow down perhaps the rise of the cost to live here, but it will not reduce it. The only thing that reduces it is if the cost of labor or the cost of materials go down, or you have a major economic crisis as we did in 2008.
And that's a very fair point. In fact, 2 days ago, I posted this on Instagram, and it went viral. I said, rising interest rates, plus a labor shortage, plus increased cost of goods, plus more red tape than ever before, plus diminished buyer demand, plus expensive dirt, plus uncertain political climate equals expensive housing and potentially stalled housing. So you're making the argument that the supply, if it's increased, does not necessarily translate into diminished price points because of these independent factors: shortage in labor, cost of goods is through the roof, and because interest rates are increasing, which is handcuffing the developer from a price point standpoint. That's what you're saying.
Yes, and in addition to that, since to buy a house, you need to have income. What we're not addressing or talking about is the fact that there are many people working today for wages that are not fair, in my opinion, that's a political opinion, and therefore are going to be unable to buy into a market like this. We have to give them the opportunity to make better income as one of the solutions.
I think that's a fair point, and I'm going to hold the University of Virginia accountable. Folks realize if I'm holding UVA accountable here, I'm going to hold anyone accountable in Charlottesville. UVA is not paying its staff the wages they deserve, and as a result, we're seeing nurses, we're seeing support staff, administrators not able to afford to live in the epicenter of employment, which is the city of Charlottesville. They're commuting from the outer counties. That, from Philip, is accurate. Why don't I throw this to you guys? What's the role of the investor and speculator? I had a realtor on this show named Tim Grossman, who's a realtor with RE/MAX. He had 2 properties on Shamrock Road, side-by-side properties, right in the middle of the upzoning brouhaha, if you may. And Tim was able to sell these 2 properties for about just under $1.3 million. These properties, to say they need TLC is an understatement, okay? He will openly say on this show these properties need considerable TLC. Still, he had folks from out of town chomping at the bit to buy these properties because of the upzoning potential and the ability to take 2 homes, knock them down, build up quadplexes, whatever you want to call it, on these properties. He cashed in on this and sold them to out-of-town speculators and investors that are not committed necessarily to Charlottesville like we are, because we live in this community, we walk down the sidewalk, we see people in the community, and our reputations are on the line here, okay? An out-of-town investor can do things at a different way than someone that lives in the community, where we run into people at the grocery store and we have to answer to what we did. So how is the speculator or the deep-pocketed investor potentially taking advantage of upzoning in the city of Charlottesville? That's a very good topic right there.
In every way possible, they are. The LLCs have already bought a lot of homes in middle and lower income areas, and they're happy to hang on to them until the zoning goes through and they can do what you just described.
Are you going to point to the 10th and Page neighborhood as an example?
That might be a good example.
Okay. Mark raised his hand here. He wants to jump in.
I'll give an example of what's also been happening in the North Downtown neighborhood alongside Martha Jefferson neighborhood. But there's 5 houses out that way.
And I will say this, I don't mean to interrupt. Where this gentleman lives, the North Downtown neighborhood is about as Tony a neighborhood as you're going to find in the city of Charlottesville. It is not cheap to buy a house in North Downtown. You would say that's fair?
That's fair. I bought my house before it was that type of neighborhood, though.
Okay.
And spent about 35 years fixing the house up. But there is a section of the neighborhood, kind of like towards the end, where there's 5 houses. 2 of the houses actually were torn down, perfectly good. They were appraised at over $500,000. The owners tore them down and built new stock up. The 3 other houses, which are being enlarged, doubling the size, and one is actually being tripled in size. So we're seeing a lot of single-family homes are being bought, but what's been happening is that they're actually building houses out to make them larger houses.
Who wants to respond?
I would like to say that the first thing that I think everybody ought to step back and realize and comprehend and admit is that we are a capitalist society.
Oh, no doubt.
Well, no doubt. But therefore, if, as you say, I have stake in the game, and having been a restaurateur, I meant steak like any
I like that.
any kind of steak. If I have my own business and I have some reason to be concerned, I want to make a profit because I want to be able to go home at the end of the day and I want to be able to pay staff and I'll be able to pay for the roof. But I'm also knowledgeable that I have to take care of my customers. If you ask me as an investor, when I was a commercial broker, there are completely different calculations that are made. Not to mention if I'm representing somebody who's got lots of money. So there's a big chink missing in this whole thing that we're not understanding or willing to think about what happens in the capitalist system. If I'm a developer, there might be 1 in 10, please developers, maybe there are more of you, that have a heart that are going to go the route of making things better and affordable. But most of them are in it to make a profit. So unless we grab
All of
this-
them are. I'm going to cut to the chase
There we
here.
go.
I haven't met a single developer that doesn't put the profit before anything else. Okay, I'll straight up say it. Philip didn't say it. Me, Jerry Miller said it. I have not met a single developer that doesn't put the profit before anything else. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. They're running a for-profit business.
Right.
There is literally nothing wrong with that.
They have to, because otherwise they won't get the financing.
And they go out of
Right.
business. And then they
Right.
can't pay their staff, they can't pay
Right,
their
all the
mortgage, and their
workers.
family suffers.
But we have to understand and realize that at the beginning, because if you create opportunity for development and you don't have control over it, you're waiting for somebody's good heart to step in, that's not their first priority.
It's very
Development.
hard to argue against that. It's very hard to argue against that. I'm trying to be right down the middle. Danny O'Day is watching the program. Danny, I want your take on this. I'm going to read your comment. Comments are coming in fast and furious. We got multiple media outlets watching the show. Danny O'Day is recently engaged. I believe his wife is a teacher. He works for Politico, and they would love to buy a house in the city of Charlottesville. He's come on this show multiple times. He's also an author. And he has said it's extremely difficult, if not near impossible, for him as a young millennial
Yeah.
to afford a home in the city of Charlottesville. I want you to take the perspective of the millennial and the Gen Zer. Do you guys have kids? Anyone have kids?
Yes,
I
You
do
have
not.
kids? You have kids?
Yes.
Okay. Grandkids?
I have grandkids. Yes.
Okay. So throw this out here. The millennial and the Gen Zer is at a point in their lives where they want to buy a house. And I have not seen a generation of people, boomers, Xers, whatever you call it, that have had a more difficult time buying a house right now than the millennial and the Gen Zer. It's extremely expensive. We are extremely under inventory nationally. The National Association of Realtors has said about 4 million units nationally were under inventory.
Yeah.
What is your thought or your perspective or your sympathy, your empathy for the millennial and the Gen Zer that's trying to buy a house that is frankly priced out of the game? Who wants to touch that? Martha, you want to go? You have a big heart, I can tell already,
I
Martha.
do have a big heart. I don't have a long enough stick to touch that one. I have two nieces that live with my sister, and they're 30-ish. One is over 30, and they can't afford housing, and they have good jobs. It's really tragic for those younger people, and I feel for them. It was very different coming up. I was like 28 when my husband and I bought a home.
I was 26 when I got my first one. Nearly impossible. I would have no shot at 26 now to buy the same house.
No.
I understand the dilemma the millennials are going through. I've read a lot about it. I've read a lot about that. It's very clear that it's a crisis. And sympathy is there. But I'm saying that from my heart, I don't think that just building a lot of extra houses is going to help. And the reason I say that is because materials cost what they cost. Labor costs what it costs. Land costs what it does.
Yeah.
You add it all up together, and it costs something. So is that unaffordable? Unfortunately, it is right now for way too many. Is the solution building more houses? No, because it's not going to bring prices down, as we've talked about earlier.
What about the outreach activities of CVille Plans Together? What strikes you? Wow, this is going to be a good one here. I can already tell by the reactions. What strikes you from the outreach activities of CVille Plans Together? I'll give them some props here, some accolades. They're extremely organized. They are a machine. They're utilizing social media. They've got a brand. They got a website. They're sending press releases constantly. I'm getting them. I mean, these folks are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. Okay? This is you guys are David and they're Goliath.
Truly.
Right? You guys are David and they're Goliath. I mean, I can't put it any differently there. What strikes you from the outreach activities of CVille Plans Together? Where do you think they're wrong? And what aspects of their activities do you appreciate and may be, in your idea, correct or right? Who wants to touch that one first?
I'd be happy to start
Please.
with that. I think that the outreach has been sketchy. If you're not on one of those social media, you're not going to get it. It's not addressed to your home in the mail, your apartment, whatever. You're not going to find out the details unless you go out and look, which is something we've done, going to council meetings, planning meetings, and these CVille Plans Together meetings. So it has not been great. The reporting on their accomplishments as they go, they've not inventoried all these supposed activities. How many people did they reach in the neighborhoods? What was the effectiveness? Did the people respond? The management of the project is falling a bit short of the professional certification crowd. We have a friend who's a professional project manager who's just appalled. And I think that needs to be understood in this whole thing. I think that the use of the website to put up their presentations has been admirable. But then you come to the presentations, which have created confusion. In the document that we sent you, there are these statements about how we want to make these developments, these projects, relatable to the neighborhood, compatible with the neighborhood. And yet they want to talk about putting in a 1 and 1.5 story neighborhood a building that's 3.5 stories and very monolithic, or 4.5 or 5 stories and still very monolithic. So, which is it? And that question has to come to my mind. I could go on, but I'm going to turn it over.
I'd love to get Mark in the mix. I love Mark. He is the statesman on the panel that's been in Charlottesville the longest. I believe you said the late 60s.
Correct.
Yeah.
He's been living in Charlottesville. I mean, quick math right here. I mean, not to age you right here. I mean, we're talking what? 60 plus years?
70.
70 years you've been in Charlottesville? It's been in
No,
Charlottesville
no,
for
no.
Not 70
He
years.
is.
I'm 70
Yeah.
years of age.
Okay, 70 years old. Okay. Talk to us anywhere you want to go on this topic.
How much time do we have?
As much as you want.
Okay.
We make the rules right here. There's no commercial breaks. And Oprah's not going to follow us at 1:30 p.m. to kick us off air.
All right. The Flume was sold to the public as a way to create affordable housing.
Flume
What's
is the
Flume?
future land use map.
Land use map.
Yeah.
I like to say the plan was created to increase density, which will result in a larger tax base and more taxes. And that's okay with me. But I feel that it should be sold and told to people as what it is,
Yeah.
not that it's to create more affordability, because I just don't see that happening. I've been involved in real estate since I was a teenager. My family talk growing up was real estate, and seeing how things have been done. And so I just, understand what is really going to happen out there, and I don't believe this plan is going to achieve the end result of what we want to do. Again, it's just very expensive to do new construction, and if you do new construction, you really need to have some government involvement as far as making it more affordable, either through outright grants or maybe something which we haven't really talked about yet, yet is land trust, which has been done in some
Right.
other communities.
Comments are coming in fast and furious. Philip, you have something on your mind?
Yeah, back to the study that the study that our RHI has been doing on our
And our
situation.
viewers are so smart, they've given us Roads in Harwell,
Harwell.
Inc.
Thank you.
Is the acronym. Can't get
It's
anything past the viewers.
roadside.
No, that's good.
Roadside
Roadside.
in Harwell, Inc. You
Yeah.
can't get past the viewers and listeners here. Just giving you a heads up. Show's yours.
That's good stuff. Thank you, viewers. I'll just give you two examples. We live in a neighborhood where two houses within the block have sold. One that's on a more significant street, the other one that's on a less significant street. We've met the neighbors. We're friendly. We go to talk to people, want to see where they're coming from, what they're about, et cetera. And not at all surprising, or maybe it is surprising to some, neither of these couples who bought these houses were aware that they were moving into an area that was going to be very likely upzoned. Now, the realtors didn't tell them about it? Well, okay, maybe it wasn't their responsibility. One of these neighbors moved.
Is it not the responsibility of the people spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to
Yes.
purchase homes to do the research?
Yes,
Would you
yes.
have researched that before you bought the house?
Boy, how would I have researched that? I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, buyer beware. That's the world we live in, for sure. One of these neighbors, though, what I wanted to make the point, didn't move from out of the area. He moved from another part of the city. So he didn't know that this was going on.
Yeah.
So that's the point I want to bring up about the outreach. I've gone to a park which has 4 corners, and the Seaville Plants Together has put 4 signs out there, and the sign is only on one side, not even on the other side. So if you happen to walk past this sign in the wrong direction, you didn't get to read what the message was. I mean, we could go on and on and on about that. I'm still troubled by the millennial situation we're talking about. And I would think that that's really the major issue right now, that we have people wanting to get into housing that can't do so. Some of them, as we've said, live out of this area because they can't afford to be in town, and they're our first responders. They're our future, they're the young, and we're not in this plan going to accomplish
A
that.
perfect example of this, take the school bus situation we have in the city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County. The school systems are paying the bus drivers about $17,000 or $18,000. They're requiring CDL licenses on top of the meager pay. Louisa County school system is paying more than the city of Charlottesville school system and Albemarle County school system, and the cost of living is a lot lower in Louisa. As a result, Louisa County has a full fleet of school bus drivers for children, while the city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County school systems barely can get kids to school right now. Danny O'Day is a millennial. He grew up in Western Albemarle and now wants to live in the city of Charlottesville with his beautiful wife, fiance. He says this: Charlottesville is beginning on a path reminiscent of empty ski towns out west in the Rockies, where the only people who own homes are either out-of-towners picking up their second home or wealthy locals who bought decades ago and are holding on for dear life. And where are all the people who work day-to-day jobs in the community going to live except for hours away? A strong comment from Danny O'Day. Who wants to touch that one?
Well, I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn.
Well, I'll say something about the topic in general. I figured out that the average apartment here in Charlottesville that's new construction is renting for about $1,500 a month.
That's light. I have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath rental in the urban ring that checks in just over $1,700 a month, and I'm below market because I want to keep the tenant in all the time. The new construction apartments, $2,000 a month easily.
Well, interesting that you said that. I went over to Dairy Market a couple weeks ago, and when they came on the market initially, they were $1,500 for the one bedrooms, and the manager there was telling me that they're actually planning, when those tenants move out, they're moving the rent up to $2,000 a month.
What's that say? Does that speak to the capitalism?
Yeah, Danny, I mean, I feel bad for you and your situation, and I understand what you're talking about with ghost towns, be it skiing in Colorado or all over the world. And no, we are not people who are opposed to development to help solve that problem. We are people who are saying what we're going to get is not that. We're not going to get
Right.
what you think is going to happen with this kind of plan. We're going to get construction, we're going to get development, prices will be at what they are. And again, I mean, we can beat this thing for a long time. We feel that there are other options. And some of our elected officials have said it's not possible.
You got 2 city councilors watching you right now.
Fine.
I also see the City Hall IP address watching us right now.
That's fine. The idea that has been brought up many, many times, we'd like to bring it up again, is the idea of land trust. The city owns properties. They're still making an inventory, I understand, of how many they have. They're not quite sure still. Some of these properties are clearly not available or suitable for development. Some of them must be. And so one possibility is to be proactive. This is what we're saying, be proactive.
Right.
And take perhaps some of this land trust idea and develop it out much more than we have to actively seek solutions to this. There are other things the city could do actively, is to create incentives for developers in a particular fashion, not just to go build more houses, although if they build them and make them affordable, that's something we're in favor of. There's a lot of land that's underutilized, parking lots, big box stores that have gone out that are now available to the market, and can, if targeted, become a substantial solution to the problem. They're on transportation areas, we give incentives, we help bring affordability in.
Bill McKenzie's watching the program. I believe he lives in the Rose Hill neighborhood. Bill, please correct me if I'm wrong. I made the analogy that you guys are David and Seville plans together as Goliath. And Bill says, give me a sling and a smooth, flat, slick river rock any day of the week. That's literally what he said right there. I love the biblical metaphors on today's edition of the I Love Seville show. Janice Boyce Trevelyan says this for the panel. Charlottesville cannot even get kids back and forth to school with the population we have now. The police department is unfilled and the roads are barely maintained. How can we get more density in this town? So you have a lot of proponents that are watching you right now. He lives in Mellorn Place. Thank you very much, Bill McKenzie. For the sake of balance, I'm going to take the other side. Okay, for the sake of balance, it's a fair talk show. We've talked about the supply and how the additional supply may balance or diminish or drop price points. You guys have made the argument, don't believe that, because the cost of goods and the interest rates and the labor shortages are forcing the builders and developers to put out price points that are expensive, because that's just the nature of no labor and that's the nature of expensive cost of goods. If we do nothing, isn't the problem going to get worse?
I would agree it would get much worse. I don't think doing nothing is an option here. I'd like to go back to the idea that Phil just said about the land trust and Mark earlier. The cost of land around here is close to a third, at least a quarter, of the price or the cost of building a small, modest home. And then if you can factor in the larger buildings, multi-family, et cetera, it still reduces the price substantially. So let's get on with that land trust business. I have looked into this, and there are a number of properties in the city that are big enough for multiple unit homes or development buildings. And they are still sitting in the wind and waiting to be utilized. The city owns property that's probably not suitable for that because it's narrow, it's too close to a highway, it's in the middle of something. But there are places all around where you could easily put up a triplex.
Kevin Yancey's watching the program in Waynesboro. Kevin, I'm going to paraphrase this comment. I think it's a decent comment, but I'm going to paraphrase it. Maybe for a little bit of kindness. Okay, for a little bit of kindness. He says, 2 of the panelists have not been here very long.
Right.
And have limited skin in the game. And he said, two of the panelists are enjoying and reaping the rewards of buying in Charlottesville at this point. There's some truth to that. You guys are new to Charlottesville. I'm not anyone's welcome in our town. No big deal that you're new to Charlottesville, but you're certainly enjoying the perks as homeowners and home values of skyrocketing price points in this town. Mark has been a homeowner for the late 60s. Smart move by you guys bringing Mark to the show here, by the way. Very smart move here. Get in here. Anywhere you want to go here. You certainly have skin in the game.
I've seen over the past few years people that are like my age that lived in North Downtown who's had their properties assessments go up so much.
You're talking gentrification here.
That they had to sell the houses. And I'm ashamed to see some of these long-term tenant people move out. Something I wanted to mention, that kind of didn't finish saying something, but I was talking about how the average apartment was renting for about $1,500 a month here in town. I figured out that in order to afford that type of apartment and be within the 30% of what the government says you should have in housing, you have to be making about $22.50 an hour. We have a lot of people here in town that don't make anywhere near that. So
University of Virginia is at $15 an hour.
That-
yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
Keep going, Mark.
I've said a long time ago to people that what I felt that was going to happen in Charlottesville, and closer you get to the inner core of cities, is that it's going to get more and more expensive, and only people that make really good money are going to be able to afford it. One of the comments I made was that only people that are making really high incomes are going to be able to afford to live here in Charlottesville, and others are going to be pushed out of town. So how do we find a way to get them be able to afford some housing inside the town here? And that's where it goes back a little bit to maybe the land trust. I had a conversation with one of the city council members earlier this year, and at that time I brought the land trust. And the council member commented to me that, well, the city doesn't have the funds to do the land trust. So we have to rely on developers to do the affordable housing aspect. Well, what do you think is going to happen when we rely on developers whose main interest is profitability? I've been a big concern for many years about affordable housing when people want to do, developers want to do SUPs. And
Special use permits.
correct. And they basically only want to do maybe 1-2 units at 80% AMI and
Area median income.
and push for something lower than that, but then nobody would be willing to do it because they didn't have to. So with this plan, I don't think we're going to achieve the amount of housing that we think we're going to
Right.
do.
The gentleman from Waynesboro, I forget.
Kevin Yancey.
Kevin.
Kevin.
Kevin, I hear what you're saying, but the fact that I'm here spending time to try to
You organized this interview.
do what I think is what the majority of the citizens would like, which is to help people make housing more affordable. Whether I have been fortunate enough to be here and own my own house or not, the fact prices have gone up the last couple of years, they would have gone up anywheres. I am fortunate, I do own my own house, but more development is not going to hurt me. It's going to hurt all of us in the sense that if we're not reaching affordability, we're not accomplishing our goal. We're just building. That's what we're pushing here.
I'm going to ask you guys a very difficult question, the hardest one I've asked so far.
Uh-oh.
Okay, and it's applicable and fair, but this is extremely difficult. What is the role of Charlottesville's racial or racist history in this upzoning? 53% of the city of Charlottesville is a single-family detached zone house. Charlottesville has undoubtedly redlined much of this city. We have seen decades ago, it's been monikered white flight. When middle and upper class white families were sprinting from the city of Charlottesville to the suburbs. And Charlottesville government had to do something to combat that movement. And how they combated that movement is by, frankly, zoning much of the city for single-family detached homes. What is the role, who wants to go first on this one, of Charlottesville's, I'll cut to the chase, and it's not unique to Charlottesville, it's frankly just about every city in America, their struggle with doing the right things for people of color when it comes to housing? And are we saying that history manifests itself now with decision-making in upzoning?
I separate upzoning from that conversation because that topic of racial equity permeates so many things in our city, not just housing, but it also affects the pay levels. It affects the people that are trying to get around in old vehicles that are not even reliable, and we have such miserably poor public transportation that really hamstrings them to even get to jobs or grocery stores or any of the services that they need. So it's a larger problem than just upzoning. I think upzoning might have been thought to be this great savior for solving some of these problems, but it's not. It has not worked on this kind of a scale in any city in the United States, our size or bigger. Where it has worked is in places where they say, okay, we just put up a transit stop here on a train line. Let's build a big apartment building. And that solves a lot of people's problems to get to work because it's convenient and it's located near other facilities, grocery stores and stuff. Another place where it has worked is in places that are not just dependent on transit, but are saying, we're going to do this on a corridor, major artery of our city, and not just scatter it all around. Boise, Idaho is recently a good example of that. They made a big change. They had a proposal similar, perhaps not that similar, but broader scale than the corridors only, and they pulled it back and said, let's do it here first, because the conveniences are there for people with low income, and they're not forced to buy a car to get to the grocery. And I'm using a simplified example, but I think that plays into it. I'm very distressed on a slightly different topic, but related, by the fact that we're not advocating teaching history in our schools. It is a different topic,
Yeah.
but
that might be a different show.
We'll come
That might be a different
that's
show.
a different show,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's related to this issue. I just wanted to put it in for that.
Okay.
I'd like to tackle this. Being the newbie here, 4 years, and as I said, relatives overseas here for Charlottesville, not for the things we love about it, but for the things that we've been branded. It's clear that the city, the country, has a history that many have not faced up to. I think that that's been proven to be one of the main forces, as you mentioned, behind the R1 zoning. And therefore, I commend the city and RHI for saying to do away with R1 as it presently is, because it's very restrictive. And I'd like to build on that. I think that you remove the R1, which is something, as we just said, that was based in past racial discrimination. And I think we would say, do that, and you have the comprehensive plan that can be re-examined every 5 years. Focus on what happens if you believe that that's a significant issue for creating housing and affordable housing. R1, as being proposed, most everyone will be able to go and build in their backyard 2 or 3, perhaps 4 if it's affordable. What happens if we do that for 5 years? And maybe not drop rezoning the rest of the city. But at that point, with the increased revenue, focus on creating real equity for people by putting money, city's money, into land trust, direct subsidies, things that are direct rather than just saying, okay, developers.
How about this comment from Paul? Government grants create an affordable house for one buyer since they will sell it at market rate. Land trust is a financial time bomb that gives an owner all the costs and responsibilities of home ownership, but robs much of the benefit. Building cheaper and denser housing is the only real solution. He's also concerned about the government subsidies, which translates to increased taxes. Increased taxes for everyone. Increased taxes translates to gentrification, which you highlighted in North Downtown. Folks are asking for a solution on the show here from you guys outside of the land trusts subsidized by tax dollars. Any other solutions that your group can suggest that can help solve this problem? Have you guys percolated that at all?
We haven't,
I would
as a
suggest the
group, gone into
transportation
that.
one.
But
The transportation one can help solve this issue. If there was more robust and reliable transportation around Central Virginia, then folks that are living in the outer county can get to the epicenter of employment without driving, which puts more money in their pocket. Perhaps
Yes.
your group could push transportation consistency and ubiquitousness as a way for a solution that's not tied necessarily to subsidies. Just a suggestion. Mark, you're writing some things down, and I see those wheels turning in that big, beautiful brain of yours.
I'm kind of thinking about what you're saying, just some other thoughts that I had. I will correct you about something about North Downtown, about gentrification, and that basically North Downtown, for the most part, was always basically the merchants in town, pretty much a white neighborhood. Did run down some. Basically, that's when I bought in. And I have a standard joke. I tell people that I plan to stay there until I don't care who changes my diapers. And one of the reasons I think it's done well is that you had buildings that were built that were well built, and in some cases well maintained. And then over the past maybe 20 years, buildings have been sold and people bought and fixed them up.
Well, you also got really, really lucky in that the downtown mall became the crown jewel of the city. And when you were living there, the downtown mall was not what it is today. It was not a pedestrian mall. It wasn't this like
it's a street.
aggregation or collection of music venues and phenomenal restaurants and just like this 8 blocks of enjoyment and fun. So you did get lucky that you bought a house in the neighborhood your neighborhood's the closest to the downtown mall. Yours is the second. You guys did get fortunate there. You really got fortunate there because you knew you were buying there because you wanted to be by downtown, probably most likely, and you liked the walkability aspect of Belmont.
Absolutely.
You really got lucky with North Downtown and Downtown Mall.
Well, I thought when we bought the house that basically that was one of the reasons was because I felt that the downtown mall area was going to develop and get good, and the neighborhood would change over a period of time. So I was looking at it from a long-term standpoint.
Oh, fair. Good response, Phil.
We did buy, my wife and I, the house we did in the area, we did because we love to walk. We walk every day. We walk miles every day. And it's really nice to be able to walk to downtown. There are lots of places that are no sidewalks that we need to take care of ourselves.
In Belmont?
From Belmont downtown. Okay, so from where I go. We ride bicycles. They're bike lanes. If you stay on the bike lanes, maybe you'll feel safe. But if you want to go from point A to point B, there aren't necessarily bike lanes all the way around. So you do that at your own risk. A lot of what's being proposed to happen in the future, if we pass this plan, are goals which are very worthy: walkability, bicycling, etc., less cars, to the transportation issue you addressed. But these are put up here as ideas and goals, and are not being funded right now, or very little. And they're being put up as a thought process, whereas the focus is being done on getting more development in here, because again, the belief is more development will create affordability. No one's shown us that more development will create affordability. Nobody.
Really?
I haven't seen it.
Really challenging question number 2, Martha.
I
I think I've been fair,
huh?
though. Would you agree I've been fair? This has been a very
yeah.
fair interview?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're bringing both points of view to the table.
I'm trying to. That's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to do.
Thank you.
I'm sure you've heard this before. The opponents of upzoning, the comprehensive plan, future land use map, have a couple of things in common. They're older, they're white, and they have wealth.
I don't know that I have wealth, but I have had good fortune. I came along in a time when women suddenly got opportunities in corporate America, and I was granted one. Did I qualify? Probably.
You earned it.
And I've earned it, exactly.
Have you heard it before? These are white, wealthy,
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
older folks?
One
Yeah.
reason it's older folks is we're not having to still be out there working a daily job, raising a bunch of kids.
That's why we have the time to actually
That's why,
organize.
exactly. So I think that's, part of the story. But I believe we're representing a lot of people's concerns that are working full-time and are in their 40s or 50s with homes and children and lots of responsibilities. So yes, we're white. I only know of a couple of people that have tapped into this that are people of color, and
On your side of the aisle?
yeah, and I do welcome them. I also feel that perhaps some of the activity of drumming up so much worry among the low-income communities has been a disservice to people because it's created an adversarial relationship that doesn't need to be there. If we're going to have people contributing to a fund, let's say, to help support affordable housing, you can't make enemies of those people. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I would add that I'm unfortunately aware of that.
I guess that's a brand, almost a label, right?
Oh,
Like a scarlet letter, if you may.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I am white. I'm older. I have been privileged. I have 3 daughters who have told me for many, many times how privileged I am to be male. I recognize all that. I recognize all that. It doesn't take away from my effort or my desire to help people who are not like me.
Yeah.
And in fact, I know people, as Martha has said, who are not perhaps as old as we are, who are not perhaps as monolithic color-wise as we are, who are also not in favor of this.
Why won't they speak up?
Well, I know of two people who have tried to speak up and who have been shamed by.
Because you sent me, maybe it's a media kit, a press release, with the folks that are a part of your group.
Oh yes.
There's some anonymity there. People asking for anonymity.
Yes.
I will say this, the 3 of you being here in front of all these people on a show that lives on the internet forever,
Yeah.
on every social media, this takes courage what you guys are doing. Not everyone's going to agree with you, which you guys knew that when you
We
came
knew
here.
that, yeah.
It takes courage what you're doing. Why are the young folks and the folks that are, African Americans, Hispanics in your group not speaking up?
I think Phil just touched on it, basically. I mean, we know of some, we've been in contact, and some of them have written detailed information about some of the things that we're talking about and how it affects the sensitive neighborhoods, but they don't want to publicly come out.
They've been shamed. I'm sorry, but I don't know. I can't prove it to you because I did not speak to these people. I've heard secondhand of people who have been shamed for making the comments that we have. And it's not that they argued against our points, Jerry. I grew up in a family. We spent all day being, if you say one thing, I'm going to say the other one. We learned the art of trying to see both sides. It's not that we're being attacked for what we're doing. They're attacking us based on who we are right now, and they are embarrassing people for speaking out. So they've brought about some of this themselves, those who have done so. Come talk to me about the issues. I think that's what's missing in our society,
Yeah.
not only nationwide, but probably worldwide, that we can't talk anymore. But you come talk to me about any issue and at least respect me, I'll respect you.
Yeah, I totally get that. I totally get that from all three of you
Yeah.
guys. And that's what makes for a great talk show. Frankly, that's what makes for an environment where we can learn from, hearing the other side. This comment was made in the feed, was put in the feed for you guys. The folks, and I'm going to paraphrase this, the folks that are on the financial margin are working the multiple jobs, so they can't speak up in favor of being a housing proponent. So their voice is not being heard right now because they're grinding so hard, working the jobs just to cover their bills. That's a fair comment there.
Sure.
Would you say that was fair?
It's a fair
Definitely.
comment for people working on either side of this issue, that most of them are busy doing their lives because they don't have the options of free time and, the flexibility.
Kevin Higgins has this comment. Kevin, before you log off, I'll throw your question into the mix. First, he's giving you guys some props. He says he doesn't see you guys as opponents. He says, I see these three as supporters of a better city, providing what our residents deserve. Everything they're saying should be included in a mission and vision statement for the city. How can Charlottesville be world-class without people like Mark, Phillip, and Martha? It cannot. He also asked a follow-up question.
Thank you.
Yes, he's watching in Greenwood, which is a thriving
Oh, yeah.
suburb of Crozet, if you may. He also asked this, is there a model city that you guys would like to see Charlottesville pursue?
I can answer that. My brother lived outside of the city limits of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and there was a new subdivision that was built there. It had all types of different housing, single-family houses, very small lots, townhouses, apartments. There was a little village where they had a grocery store, a movie theater, the elementary school where everybody could walk to. And maybe we need to really do more of that type of construction development throughout the country. I don't know how Charlottesville can
Phil,
achieve something like that.
That was a pricey neighborhood. Had a
Based
friend
on
that lived there.
development of the city, but we
couldn't
maybe
afford to
need to be
live there.
rethinking some of that in the future. I also question how much new jobs are really going to be created within the city limits, and I'm seeing a tremendous amount of growth in the county, and actually I should say the surrounding counties too.
Good answer right there. Martha and Phil, your thoughts here.
I've lost track of the question. I was so listening to Mark's answer.
Anything you guys want to, that's on the brain here? As we wind our interview
Yeah.
down here, it flies by. We're at 2 o'clock right now.
You're
Oh my
kidding.
goodness.
Yeah, I know, it's fun, right?
Wow, really?
It is.
Yeah, it is fun. This
Love to
is
do it
this is
again.
my job. It's very enjoyable.
You're a lucky guy.
The show is yours. Anything you guys want to talk about? How about this question? Which Charlottesville City Councilor has been most willing to listen? And which Charlottesville City Councilor has been most unwilling to listen? And what has Charlottesville City Council done on either side of the aisle to push this forward or slow it down?
I don't think there's an aisle in city council. They all represent themselves as Democrats. So that part of the question.
Varying degrees of Democrats on
yes,
council, though.
Absolutely.
Michael Payne leans more socialist. Lloyd
Yeah.
Snook, I would say, leans more centrist. Brian Pinkston, more centrist. Sina McGill, more socialist. Juan Diego Wade, more to the centrist side.
You have two new council members
Pinkston and Wade.
Right.
who were recently elected, excuse me. Again, my 4 years here, I have had the opportunity to meet and speak with Michael Payne and a
I
couple.
would imagine he's vehemently opposed to what you guys are doing here.
I
Actually, no.
would not necessarily say I agree with you.
Okay, okay.
But certainly happy to sit down with Mike one-on-one, one-on-three, three-on-one, whatever it is to discuss this. I think we're all trying to accomplish this. I have one last question or one last statement that if we have any more council members that are here listening, where I would like for all of them to think, be they on the city council or planning commission or anything like that, if they get this wrong, because it's not a done deal that they're going to get it right. They believe they are, we believe they aren't. If they get it wrong, are they going to come back and tell us that it's a shame that it happened like this?
Well, are you asking if a politician is going to admit he or she is wrong? Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking them I'm asking anybody who's listening to this to think about this. Decisions are being made, and many of these people will not necessarily be here to respond to them. We, the citizens, are the ones who are going to get the results of this, which is why we are actively trying to fine-tune this to get it going in a direction that we believe will be a lot more productive than what we see in front of us.
Martha?
I do want
Good
to
answer,
give
Phil.
I do want to give the city credit for something in this plan that I think is admirable, and that is one of the sub-goals or secondary goals is to eliminate red tape in the process of a project, developing a project.
24% the cost of a new house is associated with paperwork and red tape and not bricks and sticks. A $400,000 home, $100,000 of that on average is paperwork
Legal
associated with
overhead.
bureaucracy. Think about
Yeah.
how absurd that is, ladies and gentlemen. Martha, I apologize for interrupting.
No, I agree with your additional comment there. That's really an unnecessary cost if you get the zoning right. And their goal is to make it so that people have to come in for fewer hearings and do less paperwork and presentations, not as much time with the lawyer, not as much time with the architect or the engineer. And that is really, I think, very favorable to cost reduction. I don't think it goes far enough, but I think it's a very good step in the right
A
direction.
fiscally conservative answer there from Martha. I
was
like
gonna
her
say-
fiscally conservative mentality. Go ahead.
Martha and I might disagree on this.
Oh,
because
okay.
I don't happen to believe that the government's the problem, and I don't happen to believe that the answer is to drown the baby in the bathtub. I certainly, as a business person, understand red tape, and I'm all in favor of cutting back on red tape, and I can't give you the answers for that. But I don't think removing all oversight by the government is going to be an answer. If you look at
No,
the plan the way it's projected to go right now, if they do the upzoning, as long as a developer will meet whatever criteria is for that lot in this plan, your planning commission won't have a say on it, your city council won't have a say on it, and guess what? You as a citizen won't have a say in what's going on next door or next block or 2 miles across from you.
Joanne Mackey, welcome to the program. We've dubbed her the Queen of Keswick. We have Vanessa Parkhill, the Queen of Earlysville, on the feed, and she says, I respect your guests for sharing their perspectives. It's not always easy to offer counterpoints in an open forum. I concur and 100% agree. Janice Boyce Trevelyan says, you guys should check out Columbia, Maryland, as an example of this being executed correctly and efficiently. Columbia, Maryland. Sharon Fix
60s, I
says
think.
this, people who understand these types of issues need to make it accessible and understandable for those of us who are living this nightmare to have conversations. Even in this program, things are being addressed that I'm fairly certain folks like me aren't familiar with or do not have a grasp on. What we know is the city is not for us, housing is not for us, we are stuck and can't even leave if we wanted to. So saying come talk to us is not really helpful. We need more roundtable discussions for the normal folks like me, roundtable discussions like this. That's a fair point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a fair point. And one of the beautiful aspects of long-form content, which we're the only network that does this in Central Virginia, is nothing can get taken out of context. This is not a 15 or 30-second soundbite. It's not even a 10 or 12-minute interview. We can take a deep dive on the topic, and then it lives on the internet forever for you guys to reference it and learn from. That's the whole concept of this show. I want to offer everyone an opportunity to have some closing thoughts, some final words. Mark, it looks like, is eager to go
He's
first
eager
here,
to
so
go.
that means Martha, we will close with you on the
Fair
program.
enough.
Phil, we'll go with you second. Mark, the show is yours.
Okay, going back to a question that you had a moment ago, I just wanted to give credit to Michael Payne in that late last year in the fall, he met with about 8 of us where we were discussing this subject for several hours one evening. And recently, he's come out with that we need to take a look at land trusts. So, you know, we do have one counselor that does think that maybe we need to be looking at this a little differently.
Okay. Michael Payne, on this program, often friend of the show. Important to emphasize, our instinct thinks Michael Payne is running for re-election next year. So it's important for someone who's running for re-election to make the rounds and shake the hands and kiss the babies, if you may. Lloyd Snook announced on this show, in the chair Martha is sitting in, that he is running for re-election. So I would very much encourage your group, when you get the brand, to lobby and continue the discussion with those two, Snook and Payne, because they're front runners to get back on council for years to come with Pinkston and Wade. I doubt Cena McGill is going to run again. Phil, the show is yours.
Well, first of all, Jerry, I want to thank you for having us on this show. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been fun.
We can talk about this again at some other time. If your people
happy to.
If your people want to talk to me, you can relay information. I live in Belmont. My name is Haraway Philip.
You'll see him walking or riding his bicycle.
Exactly. And please don't hit me, because we're working towards the same thing. I do want to commend this plan in one thing that we perhaps have not mentioned. It's that it is attempting to redefine what affordable housing is. Somewhere early in the show, I think we all expressed the fact that we don't think that the amount of affordable housing that's going to come out of this is going to be noticeable. In fact, it's lacking. But one thing that the plan does offer as an improvement, it's asking for the affordable housing. It's going to make any affordable housing for 99 years, as opposed to 5 years or 7 years, which is a bottom line for a developer. So thank you very much, Council and RHI and all of you involved in that. And please, I understand there's a movement afoot by some of those who think that this is too restrictive, that this will work against affordable housing to drop that number down. If you don't make things more permanent, it's just a bottom line for the developer. And along that same line, they've added another criteria for the affordable housing to make the area median income at 60%. Rather than some higher number at 80%. So there are a couple good things being done here. But I believe the risks to the city are much greater than the rewards that we're likely to get with this.
Martha, you get the final word today.
Very well, thank you. I do appreciate that you invited us to be on the show, and the opportunity to speak with so many viewers and subscribers. Phil took some of the wind out of my sail, but I do think that the city should be commended for where it has tried to right past wrongs. It's a long road, and we are not on it for a long time, I don't believe. So I really appreciate that they're doing that in this plan. I just don't think they're going about it the right way, but I think it's important. And I think that the goal is so admirable, so worthwhile, that it needs to be achieved. I just doubt that this particular plan and the zone changes that it's going to spawn are going to accomplish that. And that's sad to me. It's very sad.
Guys, I thought you guys did excellent work. Thank you for the time. Welcome back anytime. I sincerely mean that. Grateful for your most precious commodity, which is your time. This comment just came in, and while he opposes your stance, he's respectful of it, and it's from Danny, the millennial, who's looking to buy in Charlottesville.
Oh, yeah.
I think these folks are right about one thing, and that it's better to do something right than to do something fast. No matter if we disagree, and even if I oppose their ideas, folks who come to the table in good faith with love for their community will never be opponents of mine personally.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you, Danny.
Danny, thank you.
Perfect way to end the show. Danny O'Day, the wordsmith. Folks, This is the I Love CVille show, where in long-form content, we look to cover trends and storylines and what's happening in the community all of us love so dearly. While we may not always agree, there's one thing we have in common, and that's we want the best of Charlottesville, Virginia, a town and city that we love and hold so close to our heart. For Judah Wickower, our director, my name is Jerry Miller, and this is the I Love CVille show. So long, everybody. Just 1 second. He'll tell us when the mics are on.
Penn Bank.